Hello and welcome. Please make your way to your seat as we would like to begin the program. Welcome to the 13th Annual Ethics Summit. My name is Courtney Smith and I am the president of SEAC and the commissioner representing Porter County. On behalf of SEAC, again, welcome and thank you for attending. To start, I'd like to express our gratitude. First, a big thank you to the Times. Thank you for supporting the summit and ethics in our community. Second, thank you to our SEAC commissioners. We've all worked hard to put together a great program that we hope you'll enjoy. Special thank you to Julie Wendorf for her contribution as the vice president. It is her job to organize this amazing event. So thank you, Julie. I'd like to start our program today with the Pledge of Allegiance and a few introductory comments. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you all for attending our 2024 Ethics Summit. We're proud to say that this is the 13th summit SEAC has held since our inception in 2005. As a reminder, SEAC represents local entities of Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties which have voluntarily committed themselves to the shared code of ethics and values. This is a list of our 23 member communities. Our commissioners are locally appointed and are volunteers. At this time, I would like to recognize our SEAC volunteers. Please stand if you are a SEAC commissioner or a SEAC Board of Delegates member. Thank you for all that you do. This summit, which is held annually, free of charge for the public, is just one of the activities that SEAC works on each year. Our main focus is ethics training. That is providing training materials and events for our member communities and their employees. We provide ethics training for our members' employees as needed and provide training events for department heads or board of commission and commission members annually. We have also created an employee ethics guide that can be shared with our member community employees. You will find copies of our ethics guides at our materials table in the back of the room. The materials table is out by the stairs where you registered. Ignore me. Finally, we also oversee the Candidate Ethics Action Pledge process, which is currently underway for the November 5th general election. And at this time, I would also like to say on our table out there, the Chicago Inspector General has provided her lovely leave behind. Vanna Whiting it right now. Do you see it? It has a lovely QR code down here where you can see all of the information for their website and information as well. The Candidate Ethics Pledge asks all local Northwest Indiana candidates running for county, town, and city governmental offices to sign a pledge supporting ethics training for municipal employees and whistleblower protections. As you can see, as of October 23rd, this election cycle response rates has improved greatly, with 66% of the election elected potential electees, signing. In fact, we could hit 100% if the remaining 18 candidates were to sign before next Tuesday. SEAC has been asking candidates to sign the pledge for the last 10 election years, and we are committed to challenging all local candidates to support the pledge, recognizing that it represents a common sense approach that leads to an obvious community benefit. SEAC ethics training helps prepare public employees to apply ethical decision-making in circumstances encountered in the course of their day-to-day duties. I would like to say that Julie McElmurray spends way too much time reaching out to folks to try to get them to sign this pledge. Many people run over and over and over again for the same offices or similar offices within the communities, and then they say they forgot to sign and get mad when it gets posted in the paper. If you know people who are running for election, please remind them that this is available on our website, and they can just sign the form directly from our website. So please do not allow your friends and colleagues and constituents that you know are running to be mad that they didn't know about the pledge. So if you are also a candidate in this room and don't see your name here, you can go to our webpage, sharedethics.com, and sign the pledge there. This slide shows the names of the candidates from Lake County who signed the pledge as of October 23rd in 2024. So we have Coroner Pastrick, Recorder Pimentel, Surveyor Emerson, Commissioner District 2 Tippy, Commissioner District 3 Repay, and Commissioner District 3 Poland. This slide shows the names of the candidates from LaPorte County who have signed the pledge as of October 23rd in 2024. And in LaPorte County, Circuit Court Clerk Hensman, Auditor Rosenbaum, Recorder Bilderback, Treasurer Bereni, Treasurer Winsky, Coroner Swanson, Coroner Baker, District 2 Holyfield, Commissioner 2 Kellums, I'm sorry if I'm butchering names, Commissioner 3 Haney, Commissioner 3 Novak, Commissioner 3 Kessler, Counsel at Large Kessler, sorry, Counsel at Large Karanka, Counsel at Large Ford, Counsel at Large Mollenhauer. I wouldn't read these, but I know they're small, so the people in the back can't see. And this slide shows the names of the candidates from Porter County who have signed the pledge as of October 23rd in 2024. So Treasurer Alberon, Treasurer Blaney, Surveyor Brightsky, Commissioner 1 South Morales, Commissioner 1 South Witten, Commissioner 3 North Biggs, Commissioner 3 North Lafata, Counsel at Large Harris, Counsel at Large Brickner, Counsel at Large Bozak, Counsel at Large Graham, Counsel at Large Durantz, Counsel at Large Wagner, Town of Ogden Dunes, Kingen. Can you tell I'm from Porter County? Sorry. So again, if you are a candidate and don't see your name here, you can go to our webpage, sharedethics.com, and sign the pledge there. It's now time for our keynote presentation. I'm pleased to welcome Deborah Witzberg, who serves as Inspector General for the City of Chicago. Having been appointed to her first term in April 2022, previously she served as the city's Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety, overseeing independent, objective evaluations and reviews of Chicago's police and police accountability agencies with the goal of enhancing public safety, protecting civil liberties and civil rights, and improving the relationship between the police and the communities they serve. Ms. Witzberg first joined the Office of Inspector General in 2016 as an Assistant Inspector General, providing legal and strategic counsel for investigations of misconduct by City of Chicago employees. She is a certified Inspector General by the Association of Inspectors General and a certified practitioner of oversight by the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. Ms. Witzberg earned a BA in Anthropology from Brown University and a JD from Northwestern University School of Law. Welcome, Deborah, and thank you for agreeing to join us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation to be here today. I'm a great admirer of the work that you all do. And also, I'm a great fan of Tom Doris from St. John, who I know many of you know. I'm honored to be a guest of a group of which he's a member. Tom has looked out for me for a lot of years, which has been no small task. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the ethics enforcement landscape in the city of Chicago, which is a bumpy one. And I'll talk a little bit about the work that we do and the challenges we've faced doing it. On my way there, I'll tell you like my brief life story. It's my favorite topic, and I'll tell you a little bit about our office. I'm not going to talk for very long. I'm hoping that you all will have questions and things that are on your mind and other things that we can talk about. So I'll be like mercifully brief here, out of character as a trial lawyer, but I'll try my best. I came to oversight work by way of criminal prosecution. I was a Cook County prosecutor. I was an assistant state's attorney in Cook County. I prosecuted a wide range of misdemeanors and felonies all across Cook County, worked closely with the Chicago Police and a number of other police departments. And then after doing that for a number of years, I was sort of spiritually ready to leave the state's attorney's office for a number of reasons, but I was not ready to leave government service. I am a true believer in the power of local government to do good. And I went to law school. I came to practice law to work in the public service. And so that's what I wanted to keep doing. And I sort of looked around. I wanted to stay in government service, and I wanted to go somewhere where it felt like we were the good guys. And so that's sort of how I came to oversight. I didn't know a lot about Inspector General work or government oversight at all, for that matter. And around that time, this was in 2015, 2016, around that time, the city of Chicago was getting more seriously into the business of public safety reform as part of its government oversight operation. And that appealed to me greatly, given the experience I had had working closely with members of our police department. And so I came to the Office of Inspector General and did a number of different things in our office. I've been in this job, in this role, since 2022. So the City of Chicago Office of Inspector General is an independent, nonpartisan watchdog agency within city government. We have jurisdiction to conduct a broad range of kinds of oversight inquiries. We do both administrative and criminal investigations. We do performance audits and reviews, sort of policy-based work, and we do transparency work. We have work that is devoted simply to the notion that information about the government belongs to the governed, and government information is hard to come by and hard to navigate in Chicago, and so we do a lot of work that is, as I say, just designed to sort of shine a light into the dark corners of City Hall. So among the responsibilities there, and they are plenty, is enforcement of Chicago's ethics rules. The notion, frankly, that the city of Chicago has ethics rules is a little bit of a punchline. You know, the fact that the Chicago way is a proper noun and like not in a good way is ever present in the work that we do. Chicago has a governmental ethics ordinance which covers, it's sort of very broad and not very deep. It covers a wide range of behaviors in and around city government. It includes rules regulating political activity, gifts, lobbying, whistleblower protection, et cetera. So it sort of reads like a set of ethics rules which might sensibly kind of cabin the worst instincts in city government. However, it has not historically been all that successful in doing so, as you all know, because you read the newspaper. And you know, that is part of the backdrop against which we do our work. We are in the business of promoting accountability and transparency. We do that work against a backdrop, against a historical context, where the city of Chicago operates at a tremendous deficit of legitimacy with its residents. For decades, generations, the city of Chicago has not given anyone any reason to give the government the benefit of the doubt. So much has gone wrong for so long that whenever something happens sort of in a dark corner or behind a closed door, we've left people only to assume the worst. Now, sometimes when people assume the worst is in fact happening, and sometimes it isn't. But as I say, we haven't earned the benefit of any doubt. And that deficit of legitimacy colors every interaction between city government and Chicagoans. And I think a lot about that deficit and the way that it shapes the interactions that people have every day in their neighborhoods, all of the contacts between people and their government, big and small. We are never in Chicago, and I would venture to say that, so this is true in many of your jobs working in government as well, we are never gonna do everything that needs doing. We are never gonna investigate every allegation of misconduct that needs investigating. We are never gonna audit every program that could work more efficiently, because resources are constrained, and every decision we make about what to do is a prioritization decision. I try to think about prioritizing our work in order to do the things which position us best to pay down that deficit of legitimacy as quickly as we can. And sometimes those are sort of the big splashy investigations that make the news, and sometimes they're not. I often think about the fact that the dollar amounts are small, and so these are things that never get prosecuted. But if a Chicagoan calls a building inspector to make sure that their home is safe for their family to live in, and the building inspector is soliciting $50 bribes, that profoundly undermines trust in government, and it comes cheap. It's a really small dollar amount. And so we try to avoid the impulse to prioritize the big piles of dollars. Again, sometimes those are the things that matter most, and we go after those things. But those are not always the things which impact real Chicagoans most and which contribute to this deficit of legitimacy. And so that's how I kind of try to organize our thinking about the work that we prioritize. Thinking about our work in that way, rigorous and relentless, it's how we make friends everywhere we go, enforcement of the city's ethics rules settle out pretty close to the top of the pile. So much of what goes wrong in city government is the reality or the appearance that people in positions of public trust do not abide by appropriate ethical standards. And so in the 2.5 years or so, time flies when we're having fun, but in the 2.5 years or so that I've been in this job, we have prioritized enforcement of the city's ethics rules for exactly this reason. That has been, candidly, something of an uphill battle for a number of reasons. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. It's a little bit of group therapy, as I always say about these things. So I think the place that we started with enforcing ethical standards in government in Chicago was one where, like, the food is no good and the portions are too small. We have inadequate rules and they have been poorly enforced. So in terms of the inadequacy of the rules, I described our ethics ordinance as very wide and a little bit shallow, and I think that that's right. It covers a lot of different subject matters, but there are really critical gaps in the rules, which leave open, loopholes a truck could drive through. For example, we have lots in numbers. We have many different rules about contributions to the political campaigns of people running for office in City Hall, but there are loopholes that sort of overtake the purpose of those rules. So, for example, a company seeking to do business with the city of Chicago is restricted in the amount of money they can contribute to, for example, a mayoral candidate. So the company can only make a small amount of contributions. The CEO of that company can make unlimited contributions so long as they are not reimbursed. Now, that surely overtakes the purpose of the rule, which is to avoid the appearance that there's a for sale sign on the door of City Hall. And I just use as an example, there are other gaps in the rules like that. Nonetheless, they are the rules we have for right now, and so that brings us to the sort of like the portions are too small part of the problem, which is that historically, my office, the Office of Inspector General, charged with investigating violations of those rules, has under-enforced them. OIG has simply not, as a historical matter, been particularly active in the realm of ethics enforcement. And it's a little bit hard for me to piece together why that is. Ethics investigations are procedurally complicated. They are energy intensive. That's what they pay us the big bucks for, And I don't know whether a historical reticence to enforce these rules is a product of that, the fact that it's hard, they're hard investigations to do, they're hard cases to build, or whether it's sort of the learned helplessness that accompanies bad legacies. But in any event, over the decade or so before I came into this job, my office had successfully brought like a single-digit number of ethics cases to the city's Board of Ethics. That is not because City of Chicago officials only broke the ethics rules like 3 or 4 times in a decade. We sent as many cases to the Board of Ethics in 2023 as the office had in the decade before that. We are making a serious and concerted effort to enforce these rules more seriously. That comes with some challenges. There are certainly, again, this will not be an unfamiliar challenge to those of you running city offices. Change is hard. We often say in the reform effort that the two things people hate most are change and the way things are. Changing habits in our office around which cases we prioritize and how we work them has been challenging. We've made a lot of progress. The other thing which I think has been hard about this sharp turn in rigor and aggressiveness in our ethics enforcement comes from the fact that in order for there to be meaningful change in the government reform landscape, there's going to be a first person to get jammed up for doing something the way it's always been done. And when we are operating against the backdrop of this historical legacy, that's a real challenge. That feels really unfair to people when something has always been done one way, and then there is a first person to get jammed up because it's against the rules. That feels really unfair to everybody involved. And I think that that is just a very human challenge, and I think it's an important one to be aware of when we think seriously about what reform looks like sort of in 3 dimensions. So plenty of challenges to go around when it comes to kind of breathing life into the idea of ethical government. I think that there are some solutions, and I think that there are some good news stories. Solutions is probably too strong a word. I think there are some approaches. And I'm going to talk quickly about a couple of the approaches we have taken. So we talked about the fact that there are a lot of rules and there are some important spaces between them. Some of the transparency work that we've done has been around kind of better educating Chicagoans about what the ethics rules look like, both what they cover and what they do not cover. And I think that that's been an important effort. I think it's important that city employees as well as city residents know what is against the rules, largely so that they can report conduct which violates the rules, right? We have a duty to cooperate. We have a duty to report for city employees and city officials. We also have lots of opportunities for regular people outside of city government to report unethical conduct. In order for people to do that in a serious way, people have to know what it is that is against the rules. And so we've done a lot of public education around that. We also have tried to do a lot of public education around those gaps in the rules that we talked about for a couple of reasons. One, I think we've had some success in prompting legislative reforms, legislative efforts to close those gaps by kind of shedding light on them. But I also think that it's important to know when people read in the paper that the CEO of a developer who's trying to get a deal with the city makes a giant campaign contribution. I think it's important for people to know that that's allowed to happen not because anybody is getting away with something that's against the rules, but because there's a problem with the rules. I think that really matters. And so we've made some progress, I think, with both of those things. The other thing that I think there is to say is that I think there is some benefit when we are trying to build ethical government in an enforcement drumbeat. So we report out quarterly on the investigative work of our office, and we've made it a really high priority to ensure that every quarter we have ethics cases to report, which we are pursuing seriously, where the city is recovering fines from people who break the rules, who abuse the public trust. And I think that that's important. I think that there is a deterrent effect to consistent, serious enforcement. That's a little bit demonstrable and a little bit an article of faith. It was certainly my experience as a prosecutor as well that the idea of general deterrence, the idea that you deter rule breaking by enforcing the rules, sort of animates the system. And I think there are lots of reasons to think that that works, at least some of the time. And so I'm hopeful about that. I will say, and again, this is something that's true in government oversight in reform efforts. I think it's true in lots of government operations, including the ones that you all work hard doing. I think that success is hard to measure. And one of the things I think a lot about in our office and in our work is that we are not going to fix what is wrong with city government in Chicago in the space of a news cycle or a term or a career, for that matter. We'll all be done and gone, and the city of Chicago will continue to face legitimacy challenges, I think. Although there's a year and a half left in the term, we'll see. But I think that's the case, and so when there is no finish line in sight, mile markers can be hard come by. It can be hard to measure progress when we're not going to fix it right now. We're not going to get to the end. I think that's a challenge, as I say, that runs throughout oversight operations. I think that runs across government operations, that even if a government entity is very clear on its mission and its purpose, it can be really hard to mark success. So, you know, I'm mindful of that. I will say one thing that I am heartened by in terms of measuring success is that we are hearing from Chicagoans more and more often than we ever have before. So when we report out in these quarterly reports, they're all on our website. They're gripping reading. I encourage you to look them up. We report on the number of intakes that we get, number of calls and emails and letters and carrier pigeons, et cetera, that we get in a quarter, and that number goes up over time. And I think that that's a good sign. I don't think that that is because more things are going wrong. I think it's because more people are willing to believe that somebody will hear them when they have a concern and will hold people accountable. And so I think that that's a good sign. I take that to be good news. And again, I take that to, I am willing to believe that that is sort of results from this drumbeat of enforcement. That people know that we are out there to enforce the rules. They know more than they used to about what the rules say, and they tell us about when they have concerns. So that's a little bit about us and the work that we are doing to build ethical government in 3 dimensions. I could talk about myself and our work all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know you all have other things to do here this morning. Can we take questions? I'd be happy to answer questions if anybody has them. I don't know, anything anybody wants to talk about. Yes. Yeah. So this question is about the recent Supreme Court decision, which changes the landscape on federal bribery crimes. The gist of the Supreme Court decision, for those of you who have not had the pleasure, is that the Supreme Court limited the scope of the federal bribery law to depend upon kind of the order of events in a quid pro quo, so that if there's an official action taken followed by a gift, that's not a bribe, that's a gratuity. And in order to constitute a bribe, there has to be like an exchange of something of value before an official action. So this is an interesting and important question. And I actually think it sort of goes to the food is no good and the portions are too small question, where the rules are imperfect and they are under enforced. There's been a lot of concern about the Snyder decision and what it will do to public corruption prosecutions. I actually think that some of the concern about Snyder has been a little bit overblown. I'm not sure it's as big an enforcement disaster as it originally looked. And this depends a little bit on each state law landscape. But it is certainly true in Illinois, and it is, I imagine, true in lots of other places as well, that there is plenty of good law on the books at the state level, which renders the same kind of conduct that might have been at issue in Snyder illegal. Prosecutions, public corruption prosecutions at the federal level, that's not a volume business. The Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, is not in the business of prosecuting lots and lots of cases. They prosecute a small number of high-quality cases. As a recovering state prosecutor, I have some other things I could say about federal prosecutions. But it's not a volume business. It never has been. And it was never going to be enough. The federal prosecutions for public corruption were never going to be enough to solve the problem. And my hope is that the sort of silver lining of the Snyder decision is that it redirects some attention and some effort to prosecute public corruption to state-level law enforcement authorities. So in Chicago, I think there is tremendous opportunity for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office and the Illinois Attorney General to prosecute the state laws that are on the books, which in fact render illegal both kinds of quid pro quo, both the before the fact and afterwards. So that's a very Chicago-specific answer, which probably isn't that helpful. But I think the bottom line is that the federal bribery statute is not the only game in town.
Deborah, I have a question.
Yes.
What is the reporting process in the city of Chicago for violations?
For people to report misconduct to
Yes.
us? It's a great question. We have, this has been a big change, actually, in the way our office is built, the way our office is organized. So I'm going to take this invitation to tell you all about it. Historically, the intake function in our office, the way that we took in information, lived within our investigations section, and it was a very sort of binary exercise. So we would get a piece of information from a city employee or a city official or a member of the public, and we would look at this piece of information and say, like, well, is this a misconduct complaint? Is this an allegation that someone has broken the rules or not? And if the answer was yes, then we would conceivably open an investigation. And if the answer was no, then that information sort of got left on the cutting room floor. And that was a waste of good information because we were hearing a lot about what Chicagoans were worried about, and we didn't have a good mechanism to do anything with that information if there wasn't a bad guy at the bottom of it. And so we have moved our intake function into the sort of hub of the wheel of our office, into a more centrally located structural home, so that we are now better positioned to take information that we get from people about something that they think has gone wrong in city government or a suggestion that they have to make city government better, and we can direct it to its appropriate home in our office. We can sort of find the right oversight hammer for each nail. So if we get a piece of information and it really is a misconduct complaint, it really is like my building inspector solicited a bribe, then we can send that to our investigation section. If it's like a program efficiency or equity concern, we can send that to our auditors, to our performance analysts, et cetera. So that positions us better to make use. We only know what people tell us, and nobody knows Chicago like Chicagoans. And so that better positions us to make use of the information we get. So how we get that information, which was your actual question. I was like only a little bit kidding when I said that we get emails and phone calls and carrier pigeons, and we get information in a dizzying array of formats. And that is by design. I would like us to be as accessible and available to people as possible, and for people to be able to report either because they have a legal obligation to do so or because it's the right thing, in whatever way is most comfortable for them. I think there are tremendous barriers to reporting misconduct. I think that retaliation concerns in government are very, very real and frankly well-founded. I think that is pointedly true in police departments. It's true in lots of other government entities as well. And it's hard. It's hard to ask people to report. And so it is part of our responsibility, I think, to lower those barriers as much as we can. And so we try to have a very visible social media presence. We have folks from our office out at farmers markets and community meetings in church basements and ward nights. We have signs on our buses and trains in Chicago that look like these cards that are on the table in the back of the room, and they have QR codes and contact information. I often say we will go anywhere we're invited, and some places we're not, to talk about our work and to listen to people tell us what they should be worried about. And so the short answer is we hear from people in lots of different ways, and we're looking for new ways to do that all the time in recognition of what I think are very real structural barriers and obstacles to reporting. Yes?
Hi. You mentioned that you have an uptick in people reporting issues. Can you talk about your success rate in prosecuting these people, or making sure that the wrongs are made right?
Yeah, well, sort of. That's a little bit hard to do, in part because we're a little bit a victim of our own success in that way. Because one of the things we are doing better is taking some of the intakes we get and directing them to non-investigatory projects. So sometimes we get a piece of information and it's not a misconduct complaint. It's a program and policy concern, and so we are addressing those things, I think, pretty effectively, but not necessarily through an investigation. So it's a little bit hard to match up investigation outcomes with intake numbers, but the clearest way we can do that is, I think, in the number of successful ethics cases we have brought over the last couple of years, which has been like a tenfold increase over recent history. And so that, I think, is the most concrete example of sort of measurable empirical investigative success.
Good morning. As somebody that comes from a different country, I don't know how it is over here, but back home, the perception with the public, with government officials and government bodies, ethically wise is they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And how do you change that perception with the public when it's ingrained that it's just going to happen, this is what we've got? And what kind of steps would you give people to not getting tarred with that same brush, and to give the public a reason to believe that what you're doing is legitimate, there's going to be justice, and we're heading in the right direction?
This is such an important question, and I think really does go to this sort of deficit of legitimacy, right? Where no one gets the benefit of the doubt because we institutionally haven't earned it. Look, I think this is a long arc, and I don't think we're going to bend it back overnight. I do think that I think people are anxious for good news, and we can make a lot of progress even in sort of singular demonstrations of a willingness to do something different. So I've talked a bit about our sort of more successful uptick in ethics enforcement. We, for example, recently, so when we have investigate a violation of the ethics ordinance, we conclude that investigation, we send it to the city's Board of Ethics for enforcement. We recently had a successful ethics case follow that path of a sitting elected official for the first time ever. Now, the bad news there is that that was the first successful ethics case ever against a sitting official. Again, not because none of them had broken the rules before. But the good news is, you know, we have taken the first step toward depriving people of the notion that those people are above the law. They're not. And I'm not sure there's a magic answer except for this sort of drumbeat of enforcement. And you know, the first one is the hardest, and it's only the first one once. And so I think sort of a clear demonstration of a willingness to do things differently goes a long way. I also think that candor is important. I think that a collective acknowledgement of the places from which we are coming in this work is really important. Nobody wants to be spit on and told it's raining. I think there's no sense in pretending that our government institutions have earned a great deal of public trust.
Hi, good morning.
Hello.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about when whistleblowers are involved in claims, especially as a prosecutor and inspector general. And to further animate this, Indiana does have this going on statewide with our Medicaid fraud, and it's further animated because we also have a $1 billion Medicaid deficit. So I'm wondering what to look out for with the whistleblower component, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Whistleblowers are sort of a lifeblood of the work that we do, right? Those are the people who have the information you need to enforce the rules. This is really hard on a human level. Maybe on a human level, the hardest part of the work that we do, because we've talked about the very real structural obstacles and barriers to reporting. People have concerns about whistleblower retaliation because whistleblowers get retaliated against. And I think that's probably another opportunity for candor. I don't think there's like a lot of benefit to pretending that bad things don't happen to whistleblowers. I'm not sure that gets us very far. Legal landscapes certainly vary a little bit about what whistleblower protection looks like. Like a lot of the things we've been talking about, what's on the books and what kind of lives in 3 dimensions can be quite different. We have, for example, whistleblower protection built into our ethics ordinance, to the city's ethics rules that we've been talking about. We also have state law whistleblower protection, which I imagine you all do as well. I think there are a couple of challenges here. There are challenges in kind of like fostering whistleblower reporting and then in protecting people once they've done that. I think that a robust and visible intake function like the ones we've been talking about is really, really important. I think that it's really important for would-be whistleblowers to know that there is sort of a well-built, robustly constructed mechanism for reporting. And I think it's really important to have the people doing that intake work be well-versed and ready to talk about the dimensions of whistleblower protection and what people's expectations can and can't be. I think the other critical piece of doing whistleblower work is is confidentiality around the work. So this is hard. I find this corner of our work challenging because we are in the business of transparency, but we also do our investigative work under like a pretty serious cone of silence. Our investigative work is confidential by ordinance, and that is because of these concerns. It is to protect people who come forward as well as the procedural rights of the people accused. This ties in with the public trust question. If people don't trust government entities, then the response is going to be like, well, I don't buy that it's actually going to be confidential. I don't buy that you can actually protect my information, and government offices leak like sieves. The fact that that has historically been true makes that a little bit hard to overcome. I think that we take a very, very hard line on our confidentiality obligations. I am pretty open about the fact that that is in some tension with our transparency mandate and the reasons why I think that is. It doesn't make us wildly popular with reporters, but I think it is really important to encourage, in order to encourage whistleblowers to cooperate. Fortunately, it's not a popular contest, we'd lose. Okay, is that it?
As you know, the Shared Ethics Advisory Commission, our mission is to train on ethics. We do that by using a train-the-trainer model. You've talked a lot about enforcement in Chicago. How are you guys trying to change the culture and by training people on ethics, like events like this? How do you guys try to turn that corner, not just enforcement, but actually teaching to be better?
Yeah, it's like the prevention part of the approach, which is so important. So we have the Board of Ethics that I've mentioned, the city body to which we send our cases, has a training obligation. And historically, that has sort of been left to them, and they've issued advisory opinions, and they have a slide deck for new city employees, and it's sort of been left at that. I wholeheartedly agree with the notion that training is the first line of defense. That kind of goes back to the public awareness of the rules, right? People can't follow the rules if they don't know about them. They can't report violations of the rules if they don't know about them. We have, back to the we'll go anywhere we're invited in some places, not observation. We just try to get ourselves in front of city departments, groups big and small of city employees, and we talk about what we do and how to reach us, and what the rules are for cooperating with OIG investigations, and what the rules of conduct are that keep everybody out of trouble. I think that's piecework. There's no way to do that except to do it, department by department. We come to lots of rooms with groups this size and bigger and smaller to talk about those things. I think that more is better when it comes to training almost all the time around ethics rules, and we just try to be really visible. We try to be accessible to people. We try to make sure people know who we are and where to find us. All right. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this and all of your questions, and I really appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah, for sharing your experience and insights. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, or our next guest, I should say, but it's time to get actively engaged now and talk about ethics together. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Marlon Mitchell and welcome him as the facilitator for our case study discussions. Dr. Mitchell currently serves as the superintendent of Thea Bowman Leadership Academy in Gary, Indiana, and is the former campus president of the Ivy Tech Community College. He attended Indiana University, earning an undergraduate degree in business and a doctorate in instructional systems technology, and has over 25 years of experience as an education and business professor and 30 years of experience as an executive leading diverse workforces. Dr. Mitchell has an extensive nonprofit leadership experience that demonstrates his commitment to the growth and development of our communities. He's dedicated his life to serving disenfranchised and vulnerable populations, as evidenced by his work in community development and education. Welcome, Marlon, and thank you for agreeing to join us today.
Good morning.
You just have to press play, and it goes to the next slide.
Um, Before Inspector General Witzberg leave, we definitely want to just thank you for joining us this morning and sharing that wonderful wealth of information. Again, Deborah Witzberg. You know, when I was asked to do this, I was thinking about ethics, and just certain things just came to my mind. I was raised up by my great-grandparents, and my great-granddad used to always tell me, don't mess up my name. And as I started to think about that, I would think that he was really giving me an ethical lesson, because if the name is the only thing that we have, and if it's not tarnished, you look at it through kind of a black and white lens. And that's kind of legal. You know, you either do or you don't. In ethics, we get into the 50 shades of gray. And as a leader in education, I realized that there's probably more shades of gray than I actually thought, that or more than a 50. And so that's where we're going to begin at this morning, is looking at all the shades of gray. And that gray that we're looking at is called ethics. Immanuel Kant once said, in law, a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty for having the thoughts. That's a really powerful statement. And when we look at that and we really think about that, it's really just plain and simple. What a man, what he thinks determines what he do, and what he does is who he becomes. And so anytime that we're walking on that fence and we do something that we know may not be in for the greater good, then we're probably walking a very tight ethical line that we can fall off. Our first case this morning is no good deed. We're going to kind of do this as a collective, a whole room collective. And in order for me to really navigate this, I'm going to ask for your help. So I'm going to say, Porter County, when I ask for feedback, I'm just going to have you clap, right? So I'll say Porter County, and you all. And when I say Lake County, I want you to stump. So Lake County, you're okay. And then LaPorte County, I want you to snap. All right, and that's going to make it easier for me to, when we come time to address questions and have comments, I'm just going to ask you for Lake, LaPorte, Porter. You're going to respond with that clap or stump, and then just go ahead and make your statement. So in this first case, I want you to take a few minutes to read it and then discuss it with your table. And once you've discussed it, we're going to, again, take another few minutes to respond out, and we're going to make sure it's balanced. So we're going to respond out from Lake, LaPorte, Porter County, and then we'll move on to the next case. So the first one is no good deed. And let's go ahead and begin. No good deed. You're going to read those at your table. I'm hearing some really great discussion. We're going to take probably another 5 minutes, and then we're going to have a readout. Remember your claps, your snaps, and your stumps. I know last time I talked to you, were doing the tax stuff, right? Oh, yeah. So I'm having an issue. If we can talk about that one day. Sure. I think I need a little help. I will give you my RFID. Yeah. Do you have your? I have phone. Yeah. Let's just do that. Sure. So. I tell you what, let's go ahead and start to report out a little bit. I know we normally have about 20 minutes for each case, but it sounds like you all are kind of wrapping up. So we're going to begin with Lake County. Lake County. There you go, those stumps. I love them. I love them. So let's have a person stand up and do a kind of a report out on what you saw there. What were some of the things that concerned you? So Lake County. You have someone that wants to stand to talk. There, again, there's mics on either side of the room, and we have people circulating with mics. So,
Oh, don't be shy.
come on, Lake County, man, you're making me look bad. There you go.
There's
you go.
Dr. Vanessa. I see
Yes.
her.
the president and CEO of the Urban League.
Good morning, Dr. Mitchell and
morning.
everyone. First of all, at our table, we discussed the fact that this is unethical. You have to be careful to be swayed by your friends and your family. And why would you hire someone that may not even be qualified for the position? No matter how much you may want to support your friend and their family, you should not do that. And then now you're in a position where you're being overworked, you're stressed out because you made a mistake. I believe that there could have been some political connections there, but your word is your bond, your name is like gold, and you need to protect that at all times. So she should not have gotten in that situation, but there's always a way out. If you talk to your leadership, and if you admit that you may have made a mistake, and document, and document again. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we're going to jump over to Porter County. Porter County, I don't hear you. There you go, Porter County. Cheryl. I heard Cheryl. I heard it, Cheryl. It's on you. Cheryl is Chief of Human Resources. Cheryl.
Okay. We talked about it, and okay, there we go. We talked about it, and she shouldn't have pushed for her friend's daughter to get the job because her friend's daughter did not possess the skill set. She was not qualified. Plus, she shouldn't be, just as was discussed before, shouldn't be pushing for a friend or friend's family. And also, she did Linda's work for her at the detriment of her own job. And she also lost her integrity by making excuses for her in response to customer complaints. So it affected her own job performance, and it affected her integrity.
Cheryl, what would her write-up have been in your HR department?
She would have been put on a performance improvement plan or received some disciplinary action if it continued to occur.
What about the girl who had no skills? Would she have been let go?
The girl that had no skills would have been put on a performance improvement plan to give her the opportunity to improve, and if she did not improve, would have been let go. But we would have had that first 30-day, or that first 90-day period.
The probationary period,
yes.
the review.
But the hard thing would have been if, her mother's friend was doing her work for her. It might have been very hard to discover that she was not performing well.
Thank you. A lot of times that is very challenging, right? When you have someone be placed in a compromised position. And I always like to say that your friends and family won't put you in a compromised position, but oftentimes they do because of the familiar relationship and the benefits they think that can occur from that. We're going to move on to LaPorte County. Can I hear you, LaPorte County? Yeah, there should be some snapping going on. LaPorte County? All right, so you're just testing it out, right? Okay. Are you a lend support? Well, can you lend a little bit more support and maybe give your comments about that? I appreciate that. Oh, he's from Lake County. Well, hey, that's not the first time Lake County stepped over county line. I'm Lake County too, through and through.
We're just going to use your snowplow. It's okay. Bring it on over.
All right, now that I put my foot in my mouth, my name is Jeff Bungie. I'm town manager for Cedar Lake in Lake County. We did talk about all of the things that were discussed previously. I guess my big takeoff of it that the lack of action that should have been taken to prevent the escalation of problems down the road with a 90-day performance review and some mentoring by other folks could have helped out the situation quite a bit.
Well, thank you. Hey, I got a question for you, though. We said that we've been talking about what happened when it occurred. But what about what facilitated occurring?
Why did they
right?
let that woman have so much sway over who they hired?
Why does she have so much sway? And what's their interview process? What's their hiring process? Was there anything? I mean, what about? Can you kind of give me your opinion on that?
There certainly should have been more guidance as far as a wider control, I guess, as far as one person should not be able to make the ultimate decision for a underlying position, I suppose. Clearly, at the end of the example, they talk about a supervisor, but you don't hear of anything as far as any kind of supervisory role being taken, as far as being involved with the interviewing and hiring process.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that has a comment about no good deed? And does it? Yes, Dr. Rhodes, right?
So this happened to me once before. Someone asked me to hire a relative of theirs, and they told me beforehand that this relative had a problem with theft. And when they came back and asked me if I would hire the nephew, my immediate response was no. I'm not hiring this individual because they have ethical issues. And sometimes when we are presented with these scenarios, we have to say no to prevent all of the other things that come along with that. So and then if because it tells us in this situation, this person had poor life choices and limited skills. So why would we want to put ourselves in that position for anyone?
You don't believe in second chances?
No, not in this case. No.
I hear you. All right, at this case study number 1, no good deed goes unpunished. Right, so we're going to move on to the next one. Summer fun. Here, I have another quote for you, right? It says that any tool can be used for good or bad. It's really the ethics of the artist using it. So that really means that, most of your decisions, they can be good or bad, but it's how you really interpret, how you implement, how you execute it, whether or not you find yourself in an ethical dilemma. And so, again, summer fun. We're going to take a few minutes and read that, and then we're going to come back and do the same thing. We'll start out with, just to give you a heads up, we'll start off with Porter County first. And so you'll be the first to speak as we come back. So take a few minutes and review the case with your table.
the meeting minutes saved on my desktop, so I'm ready when you send me the slide deck. Last time I lost them, she went, "Send them." I'm like, "Send them again. I don't know where they are. I lost them." I even went back through my email, couldn't find them. I pressed them. I must have deleted it. I don't know what the hell I did. Sorry.
It's 2 months between each meeting, so it's
Yeah, we only meet every 2 months. You'll have to get on a committee. There's several committees to choose from. You can be on like communications committee or planning committee or whatever committee, and then you get with them and they decide what they would like you to do. But not much to do except show up to the meetings and then talk to your municipality about what they're doing and make sure the municipality does a training. Chesterton has not done a training because Todd Elliott hasn't been in a meeting in 2 fucking years. Me neither. He came what, 2 or 3 times?
Who was he appointed?
He was appointed by, yeah, he was appointed by Dave as the coast, and he never showed up. And Dave didn't show up to any of the joint board of delegates meetings, so the town has done nothing in 2 years. And Dave's gone, so it's fine. But here's the problem. I asked Dave if I could replace Todd. He goes, "Oh, let me email Todd and see if he'll do it." I go, "He hasn't been in a bit. Yeah, I asked Dave." And finally, when Dave was gone, I waited a little bit before I reached out to what's her name, who is doing the management now. And she said that Courtney would do the joint board of delegates and that I could ask her to put out an ad for the. But I didn't want to overwhelm them in the first 2 months. They got their feet wet, so I waited. Yeah, literally, Dave was being investigated by the agencies because after she barred the was a bartender wrong. As a he appointed someone else to be our town manager. He got a freaking raise for fucking up the case. He appointed his new chief, and when they were cleaning out that guy's desk, found SD cards or flash drives of that guy as a voyeur, and they reported it to Dave, and Dave did nothing about it. And by the time the Indiana State Police got involved, now he resigned before it could be a big brouhaha.
But I thought Chesterton was such a nice town.
Well, there's a reason why Todd wasn't coming to the meetings, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's hard.
Ethical ilk.
Well, Dave was not ethical, and he was our joint board of delegates member. But I don't know Todd Elliott. I don't know him from Eve. I couldn't pick him out in a crowd.
I don't know that name, or if he did, maybe once.
And you know, I'm in Chesterton. I know everyone. Like when they appointed you, I'm like, I know Abby. Don't worry, I got this. Like when Courtney's like, Abby Trent is going to be our person. I'm like, all right, thanks. And that's all I said back. And then I tagged you in that post so you could see it. I didn't know if you had already seen it or not. Did you see it?
I saw it and promptly did not put it on my calendar, so I was like, thank you for sending me the.
No, you're fine.
Good, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, I wanted you to meet at least Julie, and then the other Julie is our vice president. I'm the president. We're super laid back. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Cecile is up at this table right in front of me.
She's got the glasses on over there. She's the training committee lead, and I'm the communications committee.
And then Janice is the joint board of delegates president, so Courtney will be working with her. We're just super laid back. This is Julie McElmurray. Don't worry, I'll tell you everything.
I know.
All right, you're going to the meeting tonight at Red Cup. Tell me what you guys are going to be doing and if I need to do anything. Because I'm leaving for Indy after this.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Hey, just to let you all know, we do have our
Fucking woman who got
our Chief Ethics Officer, Inspector General David Cook here in the house this morning.
Oh, everyone kept saying it.
So David Cook,
Sutton is not the one.
appointed by our very own Governor Holcomb.
It's not the teacher. Yes. Megan Sutton, the teacher, is Megan Marie. This one is Megan Elizabeth. I looked it up on my case. It's not her. And Dave Keystan's wife, Martha, is best friends with Megan Sutton. And the Times had to reach out to her and apologize because they had already written that she was a teacher in the school and had to retract their fucking article and shit. It was not pretty yesterday.
Oh, that's good. Okay, because when we heard the news last night,
not the teacher.
Mike Madigan's like, oh, I went to high school with her.
No, it's not her.
So I'll have to
No.
update.
Because the woman who got arrested lives in Valpo. And this woman, Megan Sutton, our teacher, lives on 200 in Chesterton. Like, she's a Sutton, like, deep-rooted Chesterton, right? This woman is from Valpo and lives on, like, Deerfield Drive or some shit.
We're going to take about 3 more minutes, and then Porter County get ready to report out.
I have no idea. I tried to Google another Megan Sutton, not Google, but search on Facebook. I didn't see another Megan Sutton, so she must go by, like, Megan Elizabeth or Megan E., like, whatever. Couldn't find her. Yeah, I know. I'm super glad you're in our group because everyone's like 70. So
And then we also have
I've been in this for 8 years, and they keep making me be on the executive committee because I'm young, and they want me to be the face of the organization so that it's hip. I'm like, it's not fucking hip.
I'm getting that from League of Women Voters too.
Well, League of Women Voters shows up at the fucking drag show and shit, and they're like 80 sitting at the table, you know, and I'm like, glad you're here. I love that, but like, it's just weird that you're 80 here.
It's like 98%.
Oh, I know that.
So it's
Oh, I know that. Oh, we don't care about that.
But
And
honestly, they're like the most
there are a
organized.
couple of Republicans in the SEAC, which cracks me up because most people are Democrats. And so when we start talking about how we're like nervous about the election and blah blah blah, they clam up. So it's hilarious. But Cal is a giant liberal. Most of the Lake County people are liberals, but we have a couple of pastors. We have, you know, you get a good mix because it's community members, right? And so it should be funny. You're not supposed to be paid by the government or be an elected official, but you are on boards. That's okay
Yeah.
because you're not paid by the government. Are you still working for Don? Yes, right? Okay.
I am.
And he doesn't care that you're here?
No, I texted him last night. He's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, no, he's like, do whatever you need
Yeah.
with all your political work.
Yeah.
Take as much time off.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, but he is losing interest.
He needs to retire.
I know.
What are you going to do if he retires?
That's what I'm figuring out. I mean, honestly, yesterday I was like, and I told him, I said, Don, you know, I didn't say Don, but you know.
Oh, you should. That's how we talk in my office. Just find a job in Chesterton and be done. I mean, I don't know how much he pays you, but fuck. I saw that Brett left. He's at Ogletree Deacon, or where's he at?
Yeah, he's actually applying somewhere else.
Ogletree Deacons is looking for someone right now in Valpo. Yeah, paralegal.
Yeah, he's looking, well, he's looking for Boston.
Oh. That's a lot of fucking work.
I know.
And he makes decent money. Why would you do that?
I know. I was wondering, what does John do?
John works for me.
Oh, he does.
He's my office manager.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
He went to school.
one thing that I noticed as I was walking around the room, I see a lot of our first responders in the room. Let's give our first responders a round of applause. You know,
What are we doing?
it makes it so much easier to really live, work, and play in our communities when we know that we're safe. And you all make us safe, so I want to say thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with having another report out from Porter County. So Porter County, do we have someone?
Anybody?
I know somebody has to be itching.
We got it right here.
Porter County, there we go.
Summer fun.
Okay.
Okay, if you say so. Hi, my name is Alicia. I am with the Valparaiso area. My